there's this framing that, oh, we're getting back to normal. Things are getting back to normal. Well, I'm going around, and it seems like we're just back to the normal that's only getting worse.
If back to normal means we're back to being underpaid, it means we're back to being worked like dogs, it means that they're back to harassing homeless people, you can keep your normal.
Well, it'll never be normal again. Nothing will never be normal, particularly after the COVID. So we already had it rough before then, and it's going to get even worse now.
But it's not exactly easy just to go back to work if you're houseless.
No, it's not. It's not easy to go back. I tried, but you also know you need to be able to fill out job applications and put a residence. My residence is the park.
It's a truly tragic situation, and the lack of a social safety net is one of the biggest problems in America right now.
I say we give the city a big you, all of us with our various signs, and just be like, we are coming together.
This city claims that their Office of Homeless Services provides a trauma-informed housing first practice. Not a one of them do.
The Democrats have basically tried to straddle the line where they're more woke and not verbally as offensive as the Republicans.
Same story, right? It's the same story every time. One's just like, one's read like a horror story and one's read like a fairy tale, depending on your eyes. But it's the same ending every time. Like we know how this book ends.
They're distracting from the real issues. Okay, the real issues is rebuild America from the bottom up. Okay, not the top down, the bottom up.
I don't care what color you are, where you from, or whatever. But until you went through it, they would never understand what it is to be an addict or a homeless person.
And what they're failing to understand is they aren't things that you can compartmentalize and separate, right? Like, healthcare is an LGBTQ issue. Healthcare is a black issue.
People here with housing are struggling very badly.
And from our neighbors, like these drug addicts do. And I think I've had enough. All due respect to you. You
don't like your viewpoint being challenged?
I don't like your intimidating tactics, quite frankly.
I'm intimidating you?
Never mind.
Okay.
But I'm just saying, but some people are trying to migrate and sometimes they're hanging in the park. So they just don't want that part to end up like McPherson Square.
So it's not so they're not trying to help you, they're trying to keep you out.
Yeah. Well,
We had a mother and her infant child put in a room with somebody with COVID symptoms by themselves in close quarters, less than 6 feet apart with no masks. We had shelters that didn't have running water. We had shelters that didn't have soap.
I'm just hearing so many groups and organizations, Facebook groups, that are handing out food, clean needles, things like that, and the government is doing, as far as I know, nothing.
Yeah. I run a group called The Handoff. And I also helped spark another group called the Heart of Schuyler. And pretty much that's what we do. We give out food. We give out haircuts. We try to put them into rehab if they want to get into rehab.
Things is looking up, and I'm going to continue to help everybody out here as much as I can. I'm thankful for Veronica for coming up, and for Jen, for you, Jordan, for John, because without y'all, I wouldn't even be having these opportunities.
The COVID pandemic just blew the top off of any delusion that we may have had. Normal for some people is painful, so we cannot go back to normal. We definitely have to see the promise in the problem.
A group like Democratic Socialists of America is having to come out in the rain, go door to door to try and help the most vulnerable people that are about to be homeless, know their rights, connect them with legal resources, inform them on the moratorium. It's just really something.
Bipartisanship is a beautiful thing, if you can get it. But working with is a two-way street. And to the extent that we have a recalcitrant Republican Party who've made it clear at every turn, even though there are poor people in West Virginia the last time I checked, poor people in Arizona the last time I checked, there are poor people in every state in this nation.
And so this was the last property on the street, and they wanted the property so bad that they used very aggressive measures to obtain that property.
So basically what you're saying is this whole suspected that she was a drug dealer or working with a drug dealer or housing drugs or whatever was kind of just a artificial reason that they used to try and seize that property.
That's exactly what happened, yes.
To add insult to injury, the city bought that house for $1 on Breonna's birthday in 2020. To add insult to injury to that. It's mind-blowing that we have to go through all these steps and processes when the evidence is there that clearly this was a cover-up, it's corrupt, and they assassinated Breonna.
They didn't feel the need to actually investigate. They just said, oh, she's selling drugs, or she's really a law-abiding citizen with no record, with a whole EMT, all of these good things that's going for her, and you never really actually did any police work.
Here's the door. It does not close properly. And then like the lock, where it has the lock, it's all like chipped away. It feels like anybody could kick in the door at any time.
And a scholar talks about gentrification as almost like you can displace people and they can go somewhere, but it's really going from gentrification to racial banishment.
They worked with Patrick Madden to draw on a map the geography that was the trailer park, the result of which had been everybody had to leave the neighborhood.
The problem is no jobs. The problem is you got YMCAs where you got to pay to get there. Can't nobody afford a YMCA. They just built a YMCA in 7th Street.
Well, actually, I lost my job in August. Filed for unemployment benefits. Never received one payment from unemployment. I was actually evicted in March, but the reason why I was evicted was not for non-payment of rent. They went around that, and he evicted me for not being under contract.
What am I going to do? Where am I going to go? I am fixing to be homeless. And I never dreamed in all my life I would ever be homeless. I've worked my ass off my whole goddamn life to make sure that I had a roof over my head, and that trailer was good enough for me. And they called us a blight.
And then here, that the same thing, that they will fully publicize the legal and practical qualifications of officers, right? So this was gutted, completely gutted. Guess when?
Last year.
2 months after the 2016 state convention, where the Bernie Sanders delegates took over the state convention.
And those affirmative action committee is tasked with forming affirmative action plans, to develop inclusion outreach and things of that nature. And it's supposed to be drafted by us. However, that didn't happen. The plan was drafted by the executive committee, the very folks who were forced to establish the various committees, and we were just kind of told what we were going to do as opposed to actually being a part of it.
The mostly white executive committee leadership.
Yeah, for lack of a better word.
I don't consider myself an expert on everything Manchin, but I will tell you that it's one thing. I mean, he goes on CNN, he very much talks about, the West Virginia Democrat, and, I got to be able to come home and explain things to my people. We're not who he portrays us to be on CNN and on Fox News.
Joe Manchin has been the thorn in the side of West Virginians for decades. He started out in the state legislature and, ran for governor in, I think, 96 the first time, and he lost the primary to Charlotte Pritt, who is a very pro-union, pro-labor, very progressive individual, and he actually started a Democrats for Underwood group, which was the Republican person on the ticket that year.
We started in Philadelphia, then went to Cleveland, then Louisville, now West Virginia. I say we could all walk and chew gum at the same time. We could cover the Twitter wars and the YouTube wars, but also cover the fact that people are dying in West Virginia, the fact that they got bad water in West Virginia, the fact that Joe Manchin, the Democratic Party here, is basically in bed, essentially, with the fossil fuckers and the Republican Party, essentially. It's really, on one end, frustrating that these kind of stories aren't breaking through, but on the other end, invigorating when we're on the road, because this is why we created Status Coup. It's also why we even make the effort to go out on the road, because honestly, unless you're speaking with people as up close as you can in person, unless you're seeing what's going on around the country, there's no way you could be connected to it.